Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and Planned Parenthood Texas votes on this very special one-of-a-kind event canceled by the Cosmos. My name is Adri Perez. I'm a policy and advocacy strategist with the ACLU of Texas, and I'm very excited to be here with my partners at Planned Parenthood Texas votes. So if you're joining us today, you probably have the same question that's been on all of our minds. Why is Governor Greg Abbott the way that he is? So we're joined today by very special guests to dive into Governor Greg Abbott's birth chart, give you insight on why he's a bad leader, and what the future looks like for our state of Texas. In case you didn't know, tomorrow is Governor Greg Abbott's birthday, so this shady chart reading that we're about to do is our birthday present to him. Happy birthday, Greg Abbott. And as another FYI, Planned Parenthood Texas Votes is providing a digital toolkit for all of you to use, and you'll be able to download Zoom backgrounds and phone wallpapers according to your astrological sign at the end of this event. So today, we're joined by Ashley Cruz from Planned Parenthood Texas Votes. Ashley is PPTV's government relations assistant. And our very special guest this evening is astrologer Marcy Winters, and she'll be taking us on a journey to dive into Greg Abbott's birth chart. But before we get into the reading, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Ashley to remind all of us just how extreme this legislative session was and why we need to get the real lowdown on Governor Greg Abbott.
Thank you, Adri, Marcy, and everyone joining us today. I'm Ashley Cruz, and I'm the Government Relations Assistant at PPTV. As you all probably know, this has been one of the worst years for not just abortion access, but for so many issues in Texas. This year, Greg Abbott held our state hostage with his extremist agenda and numerous special sessions. I'm going to take a minute to list all the terrible things that Abbott was responsible for this year. So take a breather, let's get into it. To start off with, there were over 50 anti-abortion bills filed in the regular Texas legislative session. While we defeated 95% of anti-abortion bills, Texas still passed the most restrictive abortion laws in the entire country. SB 8, a 6-week ban on abortion. This law went into effect September 1st and cut off access to abortion for thousands of our most vulnerable communities and have devastated people across the state of Texas. But because a near total abortion ban like SB 8 wasn't enough, Abbott and his crew kept going. They passed 2 more bills, a trigger ban, which would outright ban abortion at any stage if Roe versus Wade is overturned, and a bill that would ban medication abortion, the most common and safest form of abortion, after just 7 weeks, and was subject people to a felony for breaking the law. This law will unfortunately go into effect December 2nd of this year. Abortion wasn't the only issue Abbott set his sights on. We saw in 2021 a historic moment where Texas Democrats fled the state for the second time in 18 years to try and save democracy and preserve our right to vote. As Abbott and his crew were determined to limit their rights in Texas, after weeks away from home and their families, the Democrats were forced to come back, and Abbott called special after special until his agenda was passed. That agenda included the terrible anti-voting bill, but Abbott did not stop there with his harmful attacks. The Texas legislature also passed HB 25, which is just pure discrimination against trans kids in Texas. The bill blocks transgender student athletes out of school sports by preventing them from playing on the teams as who they truly are, harming kids and their parents for political gain. This really was such a shameful year for Texas.
Thank you, Ashley. I think we can both agree that this was one of the most extreme legislative sessions, and I know they say that literally every year, but this year really outdid itself. So thank you for updating us on Abbott's relentless attacks on our communities. I know that all of this in this past year has really made me wonder what must be going on in Abbott's head to drive him to do these terrible things and continue to attack our communities. So hopefully we'll be able to get to the bottom of it today with our expert astrologer. But before we get into astrology and Greg Abbott's chart, I know that all of us may not be super into it. And so, Marcy, can you go ahead and give us an astrology 101?
Sure. So the astrology wheel is basically a picture of the heavens when you were born, where the planets were placed. And the sun and the moon are called luminaries. The sun is yang, it's masculine, and the moon is feminine, it's yin. And the sun represents the soul's consciousness. The moon represents the soul's unconscious motives. And there's Mars, for instance, that we look at in a chart. And Mars is the way people act. It's the way they demonstrate their feelings. So it's also yang, it's masculine. And you might have heard of someone's ascendant, their rising sign. That's where the horizon was when you're born.
What does your rising tell us about a person?
The rising is actually how people perceive the soul. So it's some insight into how others are taking you in.
Great, thank you. So what are some of the basics of Greg Abbott's chart? Let's start with the sun.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, his birthday's coming up, as you know, it's tomorrow. And he is a Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is ruled by the planet Pluto. And this is all about intensity. When anyone mentions a Scorpio, there are individuals that feel like, oh, is there some dark energy or mystery? Well, there could be. It doesn't mean that every Scorpio is a dark person or only has dark thoughts. It just means that there might be more intensity to that person. So it's how you use the energy. Now, Greg Abbott has what's called a stellium in Scorpio. It's a grouping of planets of 3 or more in the same sign. Scorpio is about wanting control. So individuals that have a lot of Scorpio in their chart tend toward needing to feel empowered. And the way they use that is depending on the aspects between other planets as well.
So his sun is in Scorpio. What other planets does he have in Scorpio that make him feel the need for control and power?
Oh, it's more like, what doesn't he have in Scorpio? He has Scorpio sun, this is his consciousness, certainly. And he has also Mars, which I was speaking to you about, the way he demonstrates in his life, his demonstrative nature. He also has Neptune, and Neptune in Scorpio is the soul's belief systems. So Pluto is the soul's transformative emotional body, but Neptune is the spiritual inclination in what the belief systems hold. And being that it's Scorpio, it shows that he is perhaps challenged and confused by making changes because his aspects are not necessarily harmonious with other planets, the Scorpio aspects.
So what do you think all of this means for some of these decisions that you heard Ashley cover that he made this year during the legislative session? Because a lot of these were made really to please only a small group of people, but with the idea that it would keep him in power. And so I think that really speaks to the sense of control that Scorpios have.
Yes.
So could you tell us a little bit more?
That is a good point, because the Scorpio energy doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a power grab and have that kind of power hungry disposition. But again, if in fact these planets are aspected in a way that has challenges, for instance, to Mars, trying to get his emotional body to align with the way his active nature is, he's challenged. So what I see also is are elements in his chart: fire, air, earth, and water. His, believe it or not, fiery nature, his fire signs in his chart are 7. His air sign, you have fire, air, earth, water. Air is only 1. air is the way that we think things through. He's lacking in his ability to carry out and weigh the pros and cons of issues. In regard to what Ashley mentioned, every issue is basically one in which he's fighting to get clarity.
And he doesn't have that air sign to balance it out, to be able to do it for himself, perhaps?
Yes, so the fire is active. He's just basically impulsive, impatient, intolerant. Inability to have introspection is also part of the challenge for him in his astrological constitution. The archetypes are showing also that his inability to perceive others' needs. Back to what Ashley said, it's more about his agenda than necessarily the societal agenda. His limiting viewpoint is what he wants to have control of.
I mean, well, all of this is really interesting, but it sounds like he doesn't have a lot of great characteristics that make him a good leader for the state of Texas if he doesn't care about the public at large. One thing that we skipped over was his moon sign. I don't believe that we talked about his moon. So what's going on there?
I was just going to talk about his moon, because the moon being in Leo, one thinks, oh, Leo, the lion, the leader. No, the moon is actually aspected in a way that's challenged, and Leo moons are the child of the zodiac. They're like the pet cat that just wants to be pet and just wants to have attention. So his courage basically is unfortunately not something that he is focused on. His courageousness in his own spiritual evolution, he's limited by having just, unfortunately, an attachment to his own agenda.
So, I mean, what I'm also hearing is that he does things in order to gain the approval and attention of others because of that Leo kind of child of the zodiac moon that he has. Is that right?
Yes, and there's an interesting notion, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so we call Aries the child of the zodiac, but Leo represents children. So Leo is his unconscious drives being his moon. He's unconsciously playing out a part like a child, like an immature child. So you know how children, look at me, mom, look at me. They say that they want you to see them. But meanwhile, that may not be necessarily as deep. That's a kind of superficial type of stance. So he really struggles, because Scorpio, that represents depth, okay, is unfortunately aspected in ways, all those Scorpio planets are aspected in ways where he's challenged to feel in control.
That is all really interesting, and again, really reflective of what we saw happen this past legislative session, where something would happen in the political sphere and then he would retaliate by putting something on a special session agenda. So, I mean, birth charts don't lie, y'all. Birth charts don't lie. Is there anything else, Marcy, you think that's really important to mention for our audience to know about Greg Abbott's chart?
Yes, actually, in his natal chart, his birth chart, Mercury, the way he speaks, communicates in his mental energy, is square Pluto, the soul's transformer. So this shows also cruelty in speech, by the way. And also in the future, I looked at his chart coming up in the next year or two. There are going to be major, major shifts for him. I can see that he is going to have an identity transformation, that something in regard to how he identifies himself is going to be a huge and intense change for him.
Does that change mean that it's going to be good or bad? Do you think he'll change for the better, or do you think he's just going to get worse?
You know, I believe that he's going to be challenged by his responsibilities. That's a great question. Remember, in astrology, it's not necessarily the planets, it's how, or the way the planets affect each other, it's how you use the energy. So if you know that you're challenged and being self-aware, you can help yourself. Is he self-aware? My guess is that he's going to be continuing to be immature and challenged, and he's going to not necessarily, I believe, have as enlarged a scope of vision. I believe that he's still going to maintain a limited scope. The change, by the way, is going to be more about his personal identity. So as far as professionally, how it's going to work out, I feel like he's going to be really serious. And I think there might be some new energy that needs to come in. He's kind of like the old man energy. And I think we need some fresh energy, and we might see that. I'm hoping to.
Well, thank you so much, Marcy, for that wonderful birth chart reading on Governor Greg Abbott. I want our audience members to really focus on, I think, the last thing that you touched on, right? That these last 2 years, or these next 2 years, are going to be a time of transformational change for Governor Greg Abbott's identity. And so now that we've learned about everything that makes him tick, everything about why he is the way that he is and what the future holds for him, let's keep that in mind about what we can do in these next 2 years to make sure that that change, if it's not a positive one for him, because it doesn't sound like it is at least a positive one for the state of Texas.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, and 2021 was a hard year, made harder by having a governor who is determined to attack us and our rights, but we don't have to put up with it. And you know, the stars don't lie. So in 2022, we have a chance to make a change in Texas. We have elections where Governor Abbott and his little crew are all up for re-election. Together, we can make our voices heard and show them the power we have here in Texas. But we cannot just trust in the stars and the planets. We have to trust in you. Not just you, but your friends, your families, your neighbors, everyone to say enough is enough, that we will not stand for these attacks from these power-hungry politicians anymore. But first things first, we cannot make our voices heard unless we register to vote. We need you to right now go ahead and check your voter registration status. If you moved, register at your new address, talk to your friends and family, and make sure they're also registered to vote. If you know folks who are about to turn 18, make sure they have a plan to register to vote and show up to the polls as well. We know that we can take back the power in Texas, but that only works if we all do our part. So after you register to vote, please sign up to volunteer for PPTV. We're going to be going door to door and spread the message that Texas needs new leadership, and we're going to need your help.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for that wonderful call to action and for all of that information on how to register to vote in this upcoming year. And thank you so much again to our wonderful astrologer, Marcy, for supporting our cause and for joining us for this very special event and giving us the rundown of Greg Abbott's chart. I want to thank all of our audience members who are watching this video today. Thank you so much for being here and for keeping up to date on what's happening in Texas politics and for supporting Planned Parenthood Texas votes. Please remember to register to vote, and we'll see you all at the polls next year.